Why don't we just relax and think together on these things? Be quite relaxed so that we can think in a new way, in an incredibly new way that can change the kind of a human being that you are, that I am. Let me state the problem. I want you to think with me on this. See how simple the problem is and yet how complex. Just think of this for now. The problem is you don't know how to take care of yourself. I said you don't know how to take care of yourself. And if you can see this start, we'll see what that means in a minute. Just go real slow, real slow. We don't see the depths of the problem, therefore we can't face it, therefore we can't change it. I will speak very frankly tonight. And frank talk is what we need. Aren't you a little bit tired of being lied to by society? By being given false solutions to the many problems that you have, the many confusions, the anxieties? I must tell you that you do not know what to do with yourself in the smallest of ways. You don't know how to take care of yourself in this insane world, and it is indeed insane. You wouldn't know what to do if you lost your wife, if you lost your husband, if you lost your employment, if you lost your health, if you lost your youth, which you are doing and I am doing. You don't know what to do with yourself. Listen to this. Listen. This is true. Up to now, true, right? Right? Okay? Huh? Now listen. The whole thing is a false problem. You ask inwardly to yourselves, look, not out in society where we're all smiling and drinking and smoking and having good, not there, I mean privately. You ask in bed, for example, before you fall asleep, and that thank heaven for that 10-minute coffee break at work, or after dinner and things are a little quiet. You ask, how am I going to solve this secret problem I never mentioned to my husband or my wife or to anyone? Because I know very well they no more know the answer than I do. Right so far? Right. I will repeat now. This takes time. This takes not just one talk, but many. Much digging into this. Anytime you ask yourself, what am I going to do about this problem? You are asking a wrong question. I look out here and I see people who are perhaps 20 years old, some of you 30, some of you older than that, 40, 50, 60 maybe, I don't know. And all your life, it never once has occurred to you to drop the question instead of trying to find an answer to it, which you have never found. And you never will. See, by asking the question, should I get married or shouldn't I? Should I get unmarried or shouldn't I? Should I invest my money in this stock or should I keep it in the bank? How should I behave at my relative's home? There's a big row going on. on and on and on. Now I'll ask you something. Why do you ask, how should I behave? If you didn't ask the question, you would know how to behave. You know those awful relatives of yours? Who, by the way, you have been a slave to, and why don't you stop it? You know exactly who I'm talking about, don't you? You know. Oh, those friends of yours. Aren't you a little tired of playing the game with them? Of pretending that it's an enjoyable relationship when it isn't at all, because you have to put out so much energy and time and maybe even money? Now, every single problem you have, everyone, don't you make any exceptions at all. Every single problem you have because there is something operating incorrectly in you. You personally. I will repeat. Every single problem you have or ever will have happens because there's something in you, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, you can use any term you want, that is not operating as it should, naturally, harmoniously. And the reason it continues is because you don't know any other way to behave. Every time you go to your relative's house and your friend's house, you behave the same way today as you did last year when you went there before. And you leave with the same negative reactions and enter the house. Instead of walking, you know what I'm talking about. Instead of walking in there mechanically and asleep and afraid, which you are, of those stupid people in that house, stupid in the sense that they're asleep too, not critically, just as a fact. You say, I'm not going to walk in there and be their slave anymore. Trying to please that man and that woman, for heaven's sake. No wonder you're a nervous wreck. It could be that tonight, just tonight, sitting here now, no one before has ever told you that it is not necessary to continue to live the way you are living now. Which is no fun at all, is it? Not really. You understand deeply, each one of you, that you don't have it made at all. I don't care if you have the nicest looking husband or wife and you own the company so you can't get fired. You have a lot of money coming from it. Your children aren't in trouble. You're reasonably young yet. You're still afraid. You don't know how to take care of yourself. Not really. Not really. Now I'm going to tell you tonight how to get rid of the whole problem. The whole problem being this gentleman and that lady and each one of us individually. Now I'll tell you how, starting right now. You want to know how. But before I do, I will ask you, how much do you want it? How weary are you of playing the foolish game with society? You understand you can be in society. You are in society. I'm in it. I'm asking you, would you like to be in society and not play the game anymore? To not be afraid, to not smile, so that that other person won't be angry with you, so that he or she won't leave you, which you're afraid they will do? For heaven's sakes, why don't you let them leave? so that you'll understand loneliness, face it, be in it, and shatter it. Now I'll tell you how to start. If you want it. It's up to you. You have to start doing something totally new. I'll get definite in a minute, but I want to repeat. If you're tired of this inner slavery, this confusion, this fear, you have to start doing something new. And once having put your hand to the plow, as it is said, you have to keep going with it all the time. You can't come to one talk. No, I'm sorry, it won't work. You can't read one book. You can't just work at this for 5 minutes after you've left the talk. I must tell you also, this is a month after month, a year after year process, which is indeed, to use a common term, it's a lot of fun, it's a real adventure, because you will see yourself change. You will see yourself all of a sudden saying, when you meet that relative, whoever he or she is, you know who he or she is too. I'm at the point, Mr. Relative, Mrs. Relative, where I am not going to fawn before you anymore. I'm not going to go along with your hatred of another person. I'm not going to take your side anymore against someone else. I'm not going to agree with you. I'm going to stop being a coward. Which is what I have been all my life, but have covered it up by calling it something else. By calling it standing up for my rights. By calling it getting my demands. And I'm going to wander just a little bit off the subject and we'll come back to it. If you want out of your trap, I'm sorry, but you cannot any longer go along with the pressure tactics of society. You make your choice which you want. If you want to join the howling mob, it's very easy. All you have to do is walk down the street about a half a block, and in one form or another you'll find a howling mob that wants to take advantage of another part of society by calling it their rights or what they have coming to them. If you want to join them, then what I'm talking about tonight will not be of interest to you. But if something has stirred in you tonight where you don't want to continue to be the same man or the same woman, then starting tonight you can start to change it. And it does indeed take time to break away from these things because we're afraid. We're getting a false reward from that organization, from that impressive person who we thought knew what he was talking about and he didn't at all. He secretly lusted after the woman in the audience, or he drinks. But for one thing, he tells lies to you, and you fall for it because you're not at the point where you know the difference between the truth and a lie. Tonight, you're finding out. Where can I start to do something new? I could sit here tonight and listen to this talk with a truly receptive mind, a truly open mind, so that something stirs in me, which I really don't know what it is, but a small part of me likes it. Put it as simply as that. A small part of me likes it. Because I'd never heard such things before. Do you know who's talking to you tonight? The truth itself. You understand? This is the truth. This is God. You understand? I'm simply saying things. It's not mine. I don't own it at all. This is the truth. And if you have that much corresponding in you, a little bit, that's all you need is that much. Then, when you hear these things, that part will vibrate. Is that okay? Vibrate, come alive. And tomorrow night and a week from now, when you're not even thinking about it, something will hit you. And then a second later, it's gone because the soup is boiling over and you have to shut it off. I guarantee you, you'll never forget that first little glimmer that you've had. So, and you'll continue to work if you really see it, because your mind has been open, because you're fed up, because you're tired of living the way you have been living, and because you're going to now do something truly heroic, truly courageous, and you're going to leap right out into the dark regardless of what happens to you. And I will tell you, it is all good. Anytime the truth starts to rob you of a false value, of that noisy party where everybody is drinking and having a good time, and one part of you is sitting back and watching the sudden flash of expression of contempt on that woman's face, and that lying man, that part of you is working and perceiving that the world is far more false than you can imagine, but that one small honest part of you is sitting back observing it and beginning to see that there is something else than the social madness in which we were born into, every one of us, and in which we were caught, and by which we were punished. And you can nod internally to this, not necessarily outward. It has been pretty horrible up till now, hasn't it? Now you be dreadfully honest tonight, just dreadfully honest, so that this little tiny gleam of light can start to work on you when you leave here. All right, so you come, that's one way to do something different, something new. You could read a right book. You could read a book that would tell you these things, not just my books. You could even read the New Testament esoterically, and it would become a new book to you. You could begin right in that home where there are problems, and instead of trying to handle them the old way, which never works, never has worked, you could start to think, well, that man said there's another way, and I don't understand it really, but I'm going to try. I'm going to see if I can. My husband get angry with me, my wife get angry with me, blew up at me or something like that. A new way would not be to respond in despondency, anger back at him or her, feeling that I'm an idiot, suppressing hostility and letting it boil inside of me, or fawning back at the person to appease his wrath. If you want out, I'm saying if you want out, if you don't, then forget it. If you want out of yourself, and that's the only place to get out of yourself, you find some small place to stop fawning, and you may be quite surprised at how much you do before other people. So that you say, I don't care what happens, I'm going to be a true man, a true woman, regardless of the consequences. Not in dramatics, you understand? Don't picture yourself on stage at all. That will ruin everything. But as an honest that's tired of being afraid of that man, of that woman, of that boss, of that child. Don't you let your children intimidate you. Don't you dare. You stand up and be a strong parent to them. You tell them you're not going to put up with any nonsense from them anymore. Now you knock it off, Bill, Mary, whatever the name might be, and you behave yourself. Kids aren't so dumb. They can see your weakness. Not only will they have contempt for you, but then you will have contributed to them going wrong later in life. Because they said, well, mom's scared, dad's scared, they're confused. I guess there is no answer. And as far as you are concerned, there never was one there then, was there? Tonight, all that will change. So that you are truly, not just words, but in fact, in life, an independent human being, independent and free of everything, because you're not trying to prove yourself or protect yourself by being in a wrong relationship with an individual or with society. Do you know what it will cost you? I will tell you what it will cost you. You listen to this. It will cost you every ounce of misery and confusion and anxiety that you now have in your lives. Does that sound strange? To be free, to be independent, to not be afraid anymore, you have to give up your misery. You say, I want to do that. You don't really. You love it. You love all your conflicts. You even love your quarrels, because they give you a strange agitation in you. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever hated anyone, but or been furious at anyone, but at the time when you were furious or angry, have you ever thrown your attention back on yourself and looked at your state while you were in the state of hostility? You ever looked at it? Did you ever notice the terrific fire that you felt? The fire. Now this is extremely important to understand, so follow it. This fire that you feel when you're angry, depressed, anxious, confused, in despair, this fire that you feel when in any negative state is a false life, a false feeling of life. But because you have never known any other life than this agitation, this despair, this jealousy, because you've never known anything else than this, you think this is all there is. Therefore, if someone comes along, or if the truth comes along and says you can rescue yourself, you will fight it, because you will feel that the truth is trying to take away what you call me, my life. You haven't made the gigantic blunder of thinking that this agitation is you, which it is not. It is simply a feeling that is coursing through you for the present, for the moment. Guilt, shame, the same thing. Guilt, shame. Now I'll prove it to you. I command you, each one of you, right now, this is an order from me to you. I command you to give up all your unhappiness right now. You're never again to be unhappy. You're never again to be angry, jealous, confused, in despair. Depressed? No more. You're not to be jealous. Oh, okay? Okay. It's an order. Will you follow the order? See, you can't do it. And the reason you can't do it is because this is the only thing you know, and you won't let me take away your misery. Because you say, you don't know you're saying this, but I'm telling you, you're saying it. If I drop my misery, I won't know who I am. I'm a miserable person who hates society for what they've done to me. My husband, do you know what that man did to me? Do you know what that ex-wife did to me? She took all my money, married 2 years, and the court gave her half the estate. So on. If you drop that, you would be no one, which is your liberty. When you are no one, have nothing, you are alive for the first time. Maybe you can see why you can't come to one talk and get it and do it. But you can come to 10 talks, 50 talks. You can read the right books. You can find other ways inside of yourself to do something different, to do something new. And I would also suggest do something new. I need to take a deep breath to make this emphatic. You stop listening to those neurotic friends of yours. You know that man who's pretty important in the community, huh? You know that woman who's the president of 3 clubs? Have you ever watched their faces when they're off guard? When they're not giving a speech? When they're not telling you how much they know? Have you ever looked at their eyes? You do it sometime, and then you stop listening to them as if they know what they're talking about. You see, again, we're so gullible, we're so desperate to find someone who will give us an answer. We'll listen to anybody who comes along, especially if he's impressive, especially if he can fill a large auditorium with 50,000 people. And there's famous movie stars on the platform. And there's a man with a rich voice who sings a hymn. Is that what you want? Not really. Do you understand what's required of you? Which is simply this. To start by saying, God help me, this is as far as I'm going with the old ways. God will help you because you made a right start. That His truth will help you. Because if you've given it this one opportunity to break down this hard wall of what? Let's find out. What's the wall made of? Very simple, very simple. If you will admit it, if I can admit it, if we can see it. The wall is made of egotism. The wall is made of vanity. The wall is made of stubbornness. And I'll tell you what amounts to about 90% of the wall. And I will even spell it for you. Pretense. Pretense. We're always pretending that we know more than we do. And underneath, there's the heartache and the anxiety. So can I plunge right into this, right in the heart of it? Listen, listen. Plunge right into it, not caring what happens to what I call me. Because what I call me unconsciously is what is ruining me. What giving me these tears and this anxiety and this getting involved with any idiot who comes along so I won't feel lonely anymore. Can I see, quite honestly, as doing something new and something different, that in actual fact, all pretense out of the way, that I don't know what to do with myself in this life. I don't know how to make these hundreds of little small decisions that come up every day. And I just wish I could find someone who would think for me. You never will. I take that back. You will find thousands of people who will think for you, and they will ruin your life. Just as they have ruined every one of us up to this point tonight. Tell you what you have to do. By the way, a husband and wife, two friends who are really interested in this can work on this together, and that's wonderful. That's fine. Two people who really want this, you understand. You have to leap right out into the dark, not knowing where you're going, not knowing what is going to happen to you, not knowing how it's going to affect your finances, how it's going to affect anything at all. And I will tell you that you don't need to know. Because the need to know what is going to happen to me tomorrow is based on the false premise that there is a me today who continues tomorrow, and no such person exists. Which is the secret of total self-liberation. Do you see it? Do you see anything? Anything? Because there is no me here now. Physically I'm the same, you're the same, somewhat, we grow a little older, don't we? There is no psychological self standing here tonight or sitting there tonight who continues tomorrow. What continues is a memory of what I call me. Last night, I won the Academy Award. Ooh, I hope I win it again next year. Already you're afraid. Last night, I did the stupidest thing I've ever done in my entire life. You've already perpetuated the pattern by identifying with the past. When you understand that there is no central you who repeats itself not just day after day, but second after second, then you'll know the secret of freeing yourself tonight, right tonight, as we're talking. Because you'll understand that you don't live in time, in fixed memory, and therefore you can end thought, and when you end thought, that ends you. Therefore, the stupid you, which was stupid, oh, the things we did, the stupid you ceases to repeat itself because it is gradually dying out through understanding that it was fictitious in the first place, it didn't exist, which is why, by the way, you must never condemn yourself for anything, nor praise yourself for anything, because in either case, in either opposite, you continue the existence of this pseudo-self. Are you following? A little bit? All this is very difficult to understand. It requires an awful lot of work, an awful lot of wanting. This is why I said you must want this more than you want anything else in life. If you do, you will make it. And you'll have to come back to one humiliation after another. For example, and many of us in our study group in Boulder City have found, we think we come to the meeting and we think we've conquered a certain thing, maybe envy of someone else in the room maybe. And we're sitting in the room and we see that envy, and now we're in despair again because we thought we'd conquered it. Never mind that. You come back again and you work on that. Because there's endless ways in which we deceive ourselves in order to hang on to this central I, which has no existence whatever except on the mental level and in imagination and in highly charged emotion. Have you ever noticed when you have been elated over something how sooner or later it does indeed swing over to depression? And either one is forming a false self, a false sense of identity, which is why when you have found yourself, if you happen to, by the laws of chance out in the world there, get $1 million, you might get $1 million, but not one penny of that $1 million will fall on a sense of identity. For example, saying, see how smart I was to invest in that stock or to start that company or whatever. Because if you do that, then you'll have the $1 million, but you'll still be afraid. And what shall it profit a man if he gain the whole world and lose his own soul? That sound familiar? All right, any comments or questions? And when you speak up, if you do, would you speak up nice and loud and clear so we can catch it on tape, please? Yes, sir.
Well, I have this point, and it kind of floated through my mind, and then it stopped and came back again.
Yes. But it is much more than emotional detachment. You try to detach your emotions alone, and you can't do it because you are not a divided person. You are not really just emotion or just thought or just physical body or just reactions. Excuse me. We are a whole human being in which certain parts operate predominantly at any one given time. Sometimes we're working physically. That is the dominant one. Sometimes mentally, sometimes emotionally, sometimes sexually. Depends on which particular part of us is in charge at the moment. So, it is actually impossible to just detach ourselves emotionally. Now, let me pursue that a little more. What we are saying, and this is in line with what you're saying, is to not have anyone here to detach from a situation. Now, this may sound very strange to you, but I'll take time to explain it a little bit. All right, I'll ask you, who are you? Please, who are you? Who are you? You don't know. If you think a minute, if you think, your memory and your conditioning will say, well, obviously, I'm a man, I'm 40 years old, I'm a bookkeeper, I'm a father of 3, I'm a student at night school to take an extra course or something. That isn't you at all. These are all these labels we have put on ourselves. So, if I get rid of the fictitious me with all these labels, with all its anxieties, when the boss blows up at me down at the office, when my girlfriend or boyfriend or wife or husband says he or she is going to leave me, when I get a cut in pay or don't get the promotion that I thought I should have deserved, who is going to be angry or depressed over it? I will tell you, in this world, the idiot in each one of us is who gets mad and depressed and jealous and furious and loaded with ideas of getting back. Have you been watching television lately, the news? You tell me what kind of a world it is, what kind of human beings are not only in the world, but are in charge of the world trying to save it. When I understand all these things, I am in the world, but not of it. I am untouched by it because I have died, as the New Testament says, to my old nature, to all my labels, all my conditioning, all my stupidities that says I've got to be someone. Why don't you try being no one and see what happens? What will happen? You will sing like a bird. Inwardly. Even if you have a bad voice, you'll sing inwardly, right? Yes?
How do you accomplish this detachment?
How do you, would you repeat?
How do you accomplish this detachment?
Oh. Come to meetings like this every night, if you can, if there are such things. You write books every day. But most important of all, you apply these things down at that madhouse of an office that you worked in, out in that mad world with the food prices doubling, and you notice that they're rubbing something off. You know they're rubbing it off to make it higher, and watch your reaction to that, and see if you're going to be a slave to that. And you'll have caught one little slavery out of 1,000 that you experienced every day, because when you're negative about anything, I said anything, you're a slave. Another way, there's very many things to say. When you are sane, I said, when you are sane through hard work, then you see the insanity of this world and you are untouched by it. You don't get unconsciously afraid when seeing some of these mad things you see on television. When some someone who says he loves you or she loves you makes subtle threats against you, and you see yourself being afraid, there's a way to live in a situation like that without being afraid. How? All right, I will give you a how. And this was given during the earlier part of the talk too. You rise up in rebellion against, now listen to this, against being the kind of a human being that you are right now. You put a lot of emotion in it. You put a lot of feeling in it. And you go through the hell of seeing what a hypocrite you have been all your life. What a liar you have been all your life. How cruel, how vicious you have been all your life, which you have been. And this is why we've been so miserable. Because we are hypocrites, because to be a hypocrite means to be divided. Inwardly divided. My face says one thing to you, and my mind says another. I'm divided, I'm a hypocrite, I suffer from being split down the middle. That's what suffering is, you understand? Not being one unified person, but because I don't understand these things, being divided in myself. For example, thinking that I have to trick you to get what I want from you. The minute I do that, I'm divided, and I am punished for it right now. With this sort of thing we're talking about tonight, I cease to be my own jailer, my own punishment. You cease to be a punishment to yourself because you have never had any punishment in your life except that you brought it on yourself or I brought it on myself. Simply because we didn't understand what it was all about. Oh boy. Because we went to the teacher, we went to the instructor, the man who was supposed to know, and they didn't know at all. But we didn't know they didn't know. And so we maybe tried to follow what they said, knowing it wouldn't work. But we don't know what to do. And when we get discouraged in trying to find the way out, then we go to escapes. Daydreams, thoughts of revenge. Have any of you ever thought thoughts of revenge against anyone? You're not very nice, are you? That is self-division. That is punishing me. If I hate you, if I try to trick you, if I deceive you, I am punishing me, and I pay the price right now. The how is to work real hard every day, get all the help you can, give yourself all the help you can give yourself. And it's amazing. Look, you're with yourself 24 hours a day. Think of how much you can teach yourself all day long. But to do it, you first have to see the problem fully and not pretend that there is no problem, or pretend, which is another division, that the future, that is tomorrow, when God takes me to heaven for being a Christian, then my problems will be solved. You are deceiving yourself. And you will deceive every other human being you come in contact with if you teach a thing such as that. I'll give you a little extra benefit tonight. Don't you ever listen to anyone who promises you anything tomorrow. They're deceiving you. They're leading you down the path, the same path they have already taken and which has destroyed them. Therefore, they have no conscience and they'll destroy you. In the name of God and Christ. Don't you believe anyone who promises you a heaven tomorrow for saying your prayers today. It isn't going to happen. You're still going to be afraid, and you're still going to be bitter against God for not giving you more material benefits, for example. Don't you know when you have this, that you can have all kind of money, or no money at all, and you're okay? When you are sane, you're okay. Then you get a little bit of money to buy bread and tea, and that's it. Cookies on Sunday. Questions? Comments? Yes.
I have either read, or I think both, read and heard in lectures where they tell you that if you have a problem like that, or any kind of a problem, you look at it and you rise above it and you see the whole thing and you can handle it.
Okay.
Do you agree with me there?
All right, all right. It needs discussion rather than yes, no, or anything. All right.
Okay, I have another question.
All right, let's cover this and then we'll come back. All right.
Okay.
All right. What does it mean to rise above a problem? To rise above a problem means to rise above, this is very complex, but simple when you see it. To rise above a problem means to rise above the thinking about it. Now you understand, I'm not talking about a problem if your water pipe breaks down, you call a plumber. We're talking about psychological problems. Problem of loneliness, all right? Loneliness? I have a problem of loneliness. Why do I have the problem to begin with? And it could take all night and I don't want to, but very briefly, I have a problem of loneliness because I have taken myself as an ego that is separate. Therefore, this being a false idea about myself, I must seek to find ways to confirm it. For example, I get married once, twice, 10 times. I get all kind of friends and I go to the parties. All this is keeping me, my so-called ego, in place because you flatter me and I flatter you and we fall in love and we have sex and all that. And all this makes me feel as if the fiction is real, which it isn't. Therefore, I have never come face to face to the fact that the whole thing is a lie, that I'm a separate self. And this is the way I keep my loneliness pushed back so I can't see it. I don't leave me. I'll do anything. Just don't leave me. This sort of thing. Let him leave you. Let her leave you. So that you go fully into tears, fully into shock, but awake, bringing these things into it. Rising above the problem means rising above the fiction that you are Tom Smith or Mary Jones, who is a separate, independent ego in this world, who can operate on other people, who can operate on yourself. This is a fantasy, a falsehood. So don't take it as philosophy when someone tells you that, but take it with knowledge that if you die to yourself, again, which is what the New Testament is all about, if you die psychologically while you're still alive, you tell me who has a problem. You'll look in vain for the human being who has any kind of a problem at all. Where are you going to find him? He doesn't exist, and he never did. Hard work, but it can be done. Now you do it. Don't you listen to anyone who tells you he understands this and can help you. Because the chances are he's lying to you. Not altogether, but the chances are you work on your own. You make your own mistakes, and you can correct your own mistakes. Second question.
Okay, connected with the first question that you should rise above it and it should not affect you emotionally or anything like that. Yet we are told every day that we live in this third dimension world that certain things are required of us, like we have to pay taxes, we have to watch and obey the signals on the street.
Okay, sure you do.
Things like that.
Sure.
All right, now how do you
Mix the two.
get away from that when you agree in order to live in this society? You have to obey certain...
Of course you do. Of course you do. But you don't have to agree with it. Now, this is very good. I understand. And it's one of the biggest problems we have. And I will go into it just a little bit. We've had this many times. This is quite a common question. When you go down the grocery market and buy a loaf of bread, outside of about 20 hidden taxes on it, One of those taxes will be a tax that will do something that is destructive to other people. Maybe it will buy a rifle. You understand, this is a figure of speech, more or less. That tax you pay on that bread, if you don't get that bread, you're going to be hungry tomorrow, aren't you? You have to buy that bread. You have to, because this is the way society has set it up. And you try, if that loaf of bread is 40 cents now? You try saying, I'm going to pay just 39 cents instead of 40 cents because that other penny is buying a rifle to kill someone else, and they'll cart you off to jail or the nut house. You have to pay that 40 cents. But if you were sane, you will do everything consciously. You will do everything knowing about this. Therefore, you're not consenting to it. In other words, if you were in charge of this world, so to speak, you would not put that penny into buying a gun. Why do you worry about it? You're not. Do you think you're going to change that world out there? You're not going to change it. You change you. Let me change me. Never mind that madness. You're part of it. This is it. You're in this world physically. If you don't have bread, you'll be hungry. You don't have a roof. Next time it rains here, you're going to get awful wet. Part of the taxes are going to do a lot of dumb things. Oh, I'll tell you. All this falls away as a problem once you understand it. Where's the problem? Look. When you are sane, by the way, are you? Do you know? You have your doubts, don't you? If you get angry, you're not sane. If you get jealous, what do you think insanity is? Not that man blubbering in that big building on the hill there with the keepers. Insanity is to be jealous, to be hateful, to be cruel, to be hypocritical. Any negativity that is unconscious is what insanity is. When you and I are sane, remember I said this early this evening, we can live in this mad world without being touched by it. Do you believe that there's certain human beings existed on earth who were free human? What about Christ? Did he live in a mad world? Did he tell Peter to go down and get the tax money out of the fish's mouth and pay the taxes? He conformed on that level, knowing that it was a mad level, but why not? What are you going to do? You're not being a hero by letting them haul you off to jail because you refuse to pay your taxes. Pay your taxes. Be a good citizen in that sense. It all becomes very clear. You won't have any problem with it. You won't have a false sense of guilt about it.
In other words, you're saying that you accept this because it's a necessity, but you do not have to let it get.
You're not consenting to it. You're not consenting to it.
And if it were, you don't let your emotions get you to the point that it makes you angry about it.
You're not part of it. You're detached from it, as this gentleman said, but you're psychologically detached from the madness. Let me ask you a question, then you can ask me another. Listen to this now. I mean individually. Don't get mass audience, then you can hide yourself next to your neighbor. This gentleman, this lady. What is your present nature contributing to society? I mean, your present nature, right here tonight. What are you like tonight? What kind of a human? Not here. You're nice now. You're being nice here. What do you like at home? What is your actual nature contributing to society? Now you think about it. What are you giving to society? I'll tell you. You're giving to society what you really are. Not what you say you are. But actually the way you are internally, which may be quite unconscious to you. You're complaining about this mad world. Who makes it mad? Who perpetuates the madness day to day? Maybe me, maybe this gentleman, this lady, maybe you. The time will come when you'll be able to see quite clearly what you used to give to the world because of the kind of a human being you were. Then if you get to this point of being weary of being who you are, weary of suffering from yourself, sanity begins. Then you begin to every day give a little less madness and a little more sanity to it. A little more every day. Do you know one of the nicest things you can do for another human being? I'll tell you, which is a product of sanity. Leave the poor man or the poor woman alone. Quit nagging him to death, her to death, with your neurosis. Leave him alone. It won't change him, but it will help change you. What are you doing to other people when you're driving in the car on the way home or on the way to this meeting? What are you doing with your relatives home? What are you doing to the lady who works next to you in the office? By your attitude, by the expression on your face. When she makes a negative remark and you agree with her, do you know what you're doing? You're being the cause of war. Aren't you? Because you're increasing the radiation, is that the right word? The waves of madness. When you are sane, when you have found yourself, you cease to radiate what you used to radiate, or I radiate. Therefore, the only thing we radiate is truth, purity, which is God Himself. That is what God is. Sanity. I and my Father are one. You and truth are one. And that is what you give to the world. And don't expect them to want it, and don't you go around saying, I'm now sane, because if you say it, you're not. When you are, you don't have to say it, and you don't have to tell anyone else about it. Not that they'd believe you anyway. Because see, I told you, there may be, a handful of people here, relatively speaking, here tonight. And I wonder how many of you would come back again to another talk. I just wonder. You have to answer that. How many people want this? Very, very few. Your friends won't want this, and your relatives certainly won't want it. You want to talk about this, they want to talk about the next racetrack that's opening next week, or about the new basketball squad that's coming to town, or what do you think about this lawsuit or that one? I ask you again, and then we'll get back to the questions. What do you want? Do you want this that we're talking about tonight? I will tell you, you can have it. I know, this is something I know. See, I know, you can have it. I also know that you have to go through an awful lot within yourself to do it. A lot of conscious pain. Now you're suffering unconsciously. You don't know how. Not one of you in this room knows how much you suffer, because you keep it pushed back with your wife and your husband and your sex and your dough and your new boat and your new car and the new roof and the new sport team that's coming to town. You don't ever see it. You don't see how you suffer when you get jealous, when you get angry, when you get upset. Sanity begins when I see and you see how mad I really am, and you are. That's the beginning of sanity. And you can't talk to very many. Don't you go around telling people that they're mad. In the first place, they won't believe it. And I could say much more, but we're on tape, and I don't think I'll say it. If we're off tape, I might. Question? Yeah. Would you speak loud and clear, please?
Does silence or meditation have any part of these activities in becoming sane?
Yes. What is silence? Silence is the absence of habitual, mechanical, conditioned thought. That is what silence is. Silence is not bowing your head, especially in a group of other people, and you're all being so-called spiritual together, which is merely a public stage performance. Silence is when you're all alone, even in a room like this, and for a moment you're thinking now, and this is proper because you're getting things into your memory. One moment of silence would be when you come to a crisis situation, and instead of reacting with mechanical thought, getting upset or angry or depressed or jealous or whatever, because you have worked on yourself so long, you know how to cut off mechanical thought so that there is a moment of silence which breaks mechanical thought. Therefore, you don't go into the usual angry reaction you go into. That is what real silence is. And it alternates with thinking throughout the day. You have to think when you go out of here, don't you? Or you won't know how to get home. You think. And that is not wrong. That's the proper use of memory. Otherwise, you wouldn't know how to cook your dinner. But if you get upset and bring an extra thing in that because the dinner didn't come out like you wanted to or something like that, that is bringing negative thought into it. I think the most important thing, perhaps in your case, is to get any ideas about false meditation out of the way. Most meditation, what people call meditation, is simply closing their eyes and doing all sorts of dumb things, if I may put it that way. For example, have you ever been introduced to what people call meditation, and you close your eyes and you wonder what on earth you're supposed to do next? See? And maybe you go into fantasy, or go into imagination, or you black out, or who knows what. It's kind of a tricky word. I prefer not to use it at all to get the associations out of the way. Silence is a much better word. When I am silent, mentally silent, I am sane. I can also be sane using thought. As long as I say rice has to cook for 20 minutes, that is non-negative thought. That's practical thought. The rice will come out nice that way. Maybe 25.
What if you have no clock?
Pardon?
What if there's no clock?
When cooking rice?
Can you sense it any other way?
I'm not following you. I'm sorry. What? Pardon?
Well, if we remove the mechanics, can a person function through what we might call intuition?
No. You must have mechanics. Part of you is mechanical. We walk mechanically. We don't have to think left foot, right foot. That your mechanical part takes over. What we're saying, let the mechanical part play its part. When you're cooking dinner, don't you know that's purely a mechanical function? 20 minutes on the rice, pour the water in, or salt and pepper, or whatever. That's a mechanical function. What's wrong with that? This is so we can do many things at one time. We become far more efficient that way. While you're cooking the rice, as long as you're doing things properly on the mental level, and it's not a dangerous situation, then you can shift your mind to something else. You could be thinking about what you're learning here. But don't you do it while you're driving the car out in that traffic. You keep your mind on that traffic out there. This is one of the biggest problems we have. We're not in the right state at the right time. Right here tonight, if you've been observing your mind, you might find that instead of listening receptively, your mind was in a wrong state. Maybe it wandered. Maybe it argued. Maybe it thought, well, that's not what Mr. Jones said in his talk, something like that. Never mind what Mr. Jones says or what I say. What do you say about it? What do you really say about it underneath it all? Underneath your layers of conditioning. I don't ask you to believe me. You find out whether I'm telling you the truth or not. You will know then whether I am or not. You take my word for it, that's just gullibility. I happen to know I'm telling you the truth. So when I tell you these two things together, then you have the benefit of both. Yes.
Are you saying that when you become emotionally disturbed in any manner, that it would be good to go into the silence, or are you saying meditation?
Well, all right.
Get the mind off of this particular thing, or just don't think, period?
But you won't do it. Look. Let's take an average person who doesn't understand it. You get upset over something. Do you know what they do? You got upset over the fact that someone didn't keep their promise to you. They disappointed you. They were going to come over and help you with dinner or whatever it was. You're disappointed with another human being for some reason or other. Unless you have begun to work on these things, you will always do the wrong thing. Now, just getting your mind off it, you might as well go take a drink, or you might as well turn up the TV and watch your favorite program to distract yourself. Now, you haven't done anything because you've kept yourself on the same flat level. Distraction. You have done nothing for yourself. You see, if you were working on yourself and this incident happened, instead of going into a distraction, and anger itself is a distraction from facing it, because anger seems to restore your sense of self. Someone disappointed you, and now you feel a loss of what you called yourself, which is phony anyway. So you go into anger as a distraction. If you could drop the anger drop the wrong reaction, and truly be in silence, which is above thought, then you would no longer be there, and that is the end of the problem. Remember we said this? Because I drop the thought fully, I will also drop the wrong negative emotion connected with it. It's very easy to deceive ourselves into thinking that we're handling a problem rightly when we've merely shifted the arena. We're in a tiger's cage, and we shift to a lion's cage, and then the wolf's cage. I'm angry at you for disappointing me. So what do? I find some distraction. I go find a new friend who I think won't disappoint me. I'm going to be disappointed again because I'm so self-centered. I think other people should behave as I want them to. Why don't you let the world go and let anyone behave toward you in any way they want and see what happens without you resisting it. Resist not evil. Why don't you try it sometime? Instead of demanding that other people behave in a way that pleases your vanity, your desire, your wish, your feeling of security. Why don't you let them leave you? Why don't you let them disappoint you? Why don't you let them fire you? Why don't you let them insult you and see what happens? No reaction. Drop it and see what happens. What a marvelous experience it is to make this first little step into behaving in a new and different way toward the challenges of life and toward my own inner challenges. I see jealousy. Instead of falsely enjoying my jealousy, I say I'm not going to go along with it anymore. I'm going to drop it right now, which you won't succeed for the first 500 times, but the 501th time, you will succeed a little bit. And then the 502nd, you'll succeed a little more, till time comes when you are in command of yourself instead of all these little devils that have had you in their clutches all your life. And then you watch and see how differently you behave toward mama and papa, toward sis and brother, and toward your children, and toward the boss, and toward your neighbor, and toward everyone else. And with great relief, you will see that they will no longer drain your time, energy, and money, because you are doing it all along because you're of your state of psychic sleep. You did it to yourself. I did it to myself. Tonight, we're getting smart. Aren't you glad? It took us a long time. Whew, some of us are 40, 50, 60 or more. It's about time we got smart. Right? Okay.
I have another question.
Sure.
Supposing we can do this, we can...
Miss, would you speak real loud, please?
All right, supposing that we can get out of this emotional state and get into the silence. This, how about the computerized me that reacts so much?
Yes. Oh.
All right, now, this is almost like blocking it out in one sense of the word. But does that mean we would resolve it? Would we understand why we were reacting?
Yes, indeed it does. To put it a very simple answer, this computerized self, which is the conditioned self, the self that, do you know why you get mad? Because you've always got mad. Do you know why I get jealous if it's me? I've always got jealous. I don't know anything like the computerized self. Yes. What we are trying to do here, and what we are succeeding in doing, is so thoroughly understanding the machine, understanding it, that we understand how it operates, and by seeing how it operates, we can then behave intelligently toward it to cut off its negative and destructive responses within us. We cut it off, we break it. And I will repeat again, not to discourage any of us, but only so that we don't go into self-delusion. It's long and hard work. Now I will tell you, and you will understand what I mean when I say this, it doesn't happen by going down and confessing your sins or saying from now on you're going to be a Christian or whatever, that is self-deception. And you will get up off your knees and be the same kind of a human being you were before, only you have now added another label on yourself that you're now a spiritual person. And you'll be just as cruel and just as afraid as you were before. Right? This is long and hard work. You have to put yourself on your own side as best you can at the start. And I've told you before, if you want to use the term God, fine. It's a perfectly good word. God will help you. Truth will help you, because the kingdom of heaven is within indeed. That is the only thing that can save you or save me. Not that man out there, and not that set of doctrines, and not the moral code on the wall, because you're not going to obey that moral code at all. You have no power to obey it. God, truth alone, can save us. But I have to first see that I, as a person who can help God, doesn't exist. God, in me, works in union with the all. But I am part of the all. Therefore, there's no me as a labeled self who can do anything. I take that back. There's one thing it can do, and that is to give up the illusion of its existence. Therefore, the more I lose, the more I gain. For me to die, this sound familiar? For me to die is to live. For my false concepts of myself, my conditioned self, my phony self, my artificial self, for that to die is for the whole me, which is not different from his or hers, is that will live. Now, I'm not divided from him or from you anymore. Therefore, we're not going to fight over anything. Can you imagine God fighting with anything? Can you imagine the real kingdom of heaven having a quarrel with another kingdom of heaven? That is the false self fighting with each other when you see people quarreling. And you know, don't you, that when people fight, they're scared? Do you know why people hurt each other? Because they're scared. Right? They're scared. I'm scared. I didn't know any other way to behave toward you. Tonight, we're doing something different. Now, I want to tell you something, because time may go fast and we may have to quit all of a sudden. When you go out of here tonight, don't you let anyone on earth, I don't care if it's someone sitting with you here tonight, someone there at home, don't you let anyone on this earth try to steal what you have gained here tonight. This is perhaps the single most important evening of your life. I will repeat that. This may be the single most important talk, discussion, meeting you have ever attended in your life. Don't you let anyone, and don't you let your own negative parts steal what you have gained here tonight. Because this will lead, if you will work with it, into something that is not imagination, but will be a reality. It will be, listen, it will be a daily life. So that when you run into this business of high prices, of someone who doesn't behave properly toward you, you run into a rude person, an angry person, you will be free of them. Because you're no longer on the level of anger, of rudeness yourself. You have indeed risen above it. You have died to yourself. Now I'll tell you that this is what I'm telling you, and what you have heard tonight, and what some of you sense with one small part of you sense is true. It is just as real as this table here, as that chair there. It's just as real as your own existence. This is why here tonight, you understand, this is very easy for me to talk to you. No effort, not really. Energy, yes. Expenditure of energy, but no effort. And you have sensed this. Now you take this and take it with you so that what I may know is what you know. Because it isn't mine. How can it be mine? Don't let anyone take it away, and don't listen to the negative parts that would steal it away from you tonight, and you will see a definite change in your life. You will not be the kind of human being that perhaps you were when you walked into this meeting tonight. And you won't find, if you go to a meeting where there are 50,000 people, the truth is not being told you. Because the masses of humanity do not want to face themselves as they are, which is required of you and of me if we're going to find this new reality. The masses of human beings want to live in their lies, in their hell. Isn't it an incredible thing that we insist upon living in our hell? Don't you ever listen to anyone who gives you the easy way out. He is stealing from you as he has stolen from himself. Okay, anything else? Then you know what you will be? You will be a human being who is walking down the street and you see that mad crowd of rioters, and you go to your relative's home and you see the petty sniping between a husband and wife, and you see that old man bragging about how much he succeeded in making all that money, and you see the small children and you begin to see the seeds of their own neurosis. And all this time, you are indeed detached from it, not in superiority, but because you have worked long and hard on yourself and set yourself aside from your own negative nature. Therefore, you're not on the level of those negativities that you see out there in the world. Therefore, you're no longer punished by them. Then you can go to your relative's house for dinner if you want, and they won't know that you're sitting there really detached from it, not contributing to the madness anymore. Well, you used to. We used to, didn't we? This is not thinking about it. We think about spiritual things. We think about going to a place where we hear a talk or a sermon. This is not to think about. This is to be. So that if you were out somewhere where you could take advantage of someone and no one would ever know about it, you wouldn't get caught, you wouldn't do it. If you could hurt someone, another human being, because you have human level authority over them, husband, dominating your children, dominating your wife, you have social authority, you're the boss, whatever, so that when you have authority over other people and you have an opportunity to pounce on them because you know they can't do anything back, because then you could fire them or scream at them, whatever. When you have this opportunity to do it, but don't do it, you're out of the madhouse. This is morality, and there is no other. This is love. This is compassion.